Come meet me at the Musial with Alan and Daniel. We'll talk about the Cardinals all night long. Everyone come gather round, listen to your favorite sound. We'll talk about the Cardinals all night long. We'll talk the games and all the rest, about the team that we love best. We'll talk about the Cardinals all night long. We're gonna talk about the Cardinals all night long.
Good evening and welcome into another edition of Meet Me at Musial. I'm your host, Daniel Shoftaw at C70. You'd think I'd never done this before. We have had 21 shows this year. This is our 21st show of the year with some amazing guests, and that run continues tonight with Alex Crisafulli. But before we get to Alex, the man is back. Coach Medlock back on the mics. Everybody's been clamoring for Alan. Here he is. Alan, it's good to have you.
It's good to be back. I've been looking forward to it all this week. Been watching some heavy-duty Cards baseball after the high school season. We kept up. We have a group of Cards fans now at Hale High School, so it has been easy to keep up, to keep pace with you guys. And man, I'm glad to be back talking some ball.
Before we get into the Cardinals and everything, let's do the quick recap. How did the season go? Are you happy with the performances, and are you ready for next year?
Extremely happy with the performances. We went into this year. I lost 3 big seniors from the year before last, and I was really worried that this was going to be a rebuild. Not only did I miss those seniors, 2 of my better kids moved away. They moved back to California. I was a little bit worried where we were because they were both skill guys. One was a big arm on the mound. His brother was a shortstop, but the pitcher was also one of our better catchers, if not our 1A catcher. And those are things in our league. If you don't have arms in any league, you're not going to win. If you don't have a catcher, you're going to struggle. If you don't have a shortstop, you're not going to make a lot of plays. We build everything up the middle, so I was a little bit worried about it. But we worked our tail off last summer, and we had some guys that came along. The game was a little bit too quick for them still, but boy, we were pretty dang good by the end of the season. We, at one point in my traveling squad, which I take to these tournaments and whatnot, we had 16 players and 11 were underclassmen. And we went and won 2 consolation tournament brackets back to back. I really thought we had something special. We had a senior pitcher who really learned how to pitch. He was a thrower that could throw some strikes early in his career, but really learned how to pitch. He was a first team all-district guy this year. Really kept us in a lot of games. We were behind offensively, but that's typically where it is in A high school anyway, and B for us, because we have so many guys that are new to the game. So it was the deepest pitching staff I've ever had as far as just getting in and throwing strikes. So we're going to take that to the next step. I have 2 freshmen that are really go-getters. We started 5 freshmen this year.
Wow.
I have 2 that will throw major innings this summer and will throw a lot of not only big innings, but will play key roles for us next year. And if you guys, both of you all have kids, Dana, you have graduates. Alex, I know your kids are still fairly young, but I'll just tell you, between your freshman and sophomore year, you get the puberty aspect of it. And if these kids thin out and grow a little bit, they could be really, really good. The chips are starting to fall into place. It's really exciting right now. And boy, I'm looking forward to summer ball already.
Yeah. It sounds good. I'm glad that those steps are being made. I know you're kind of senior heavy last year, so there was
yes.
So it sounds good, and I know we'll kind of probably double back on some of that.
Yeah,
as summer goes along. But again, I told you we have a great guest. We have Alex Crisafulli. You'll know him from Alex Card 79 over on Blue Sky. you know him as, and this is old man show tonight. This is great. I mean, we're probably gonna get we might even talk Bob Horner. I mean, since he passed away, we'll dig out some references. Sure. But Alex, how are you?
And while Alan was talking, I thought of a question I wanted to ask him, if that's okay, if we could go
Sure.
back to the high school ball again.
Absolutely.
Alan, I'm curious how much the current style of MLB, how much that's trickled down to the type of baseball you see. Do you see type of baseball that is kind of almost more reflective of a three true outcome compared to when you played high school baseball?
No, absolutely not. We
Okay,
are,
I was
and
curious.
listen, I don't want, when I jump on that question, I don't want you to think that it was just, I'm completely crapping on it. I will say this,
No, I
they're
know what you
just due to size and speed of these kids nowadays, you see a heck of a lot more home runs. You see some guys that can really put the balls in the gap. But I will say this, Oklahoma 5A, 6A baseball mimics college baseball. You bunt and you move because you have to create your opportunities, and you have to force the defense to play. That's the key. You see, you're bunting. Almost every two holes bunting for every team, and it's one of those that all it is it's the run and bunt. It's to create your opportunities. It is show off your athleticism. And to rally back to Hale, that's what we have. We have athletes. We have kids that can run, that can jump. They just don't have any baseball experience. When they get it, they're going to be monsters. But what we have to do, and you see this across the horizon of 5A high school baseball in Oklahoma, you're laying the ball down, you're testing the other team's bunt coverages, you're running on them to make sure that A, the pitcher can throw a strike, B, the catcher can throw, and C, your middle infielder can catch it. So yeah, you'd be surprised. It is much more like the college game than it is the professional game. Statistics go into it, and I break ours down. It helps me make a lineup out. Whenever I know who can watch the pitches, who can do this, but I'm still really aggressive in my lineup maintenance because one, I'm also one of those guys that feels like your leadoff guy has to put a charge in the ball because that affects the dugout and in an emotional way. But yeah, the short answer is no. We're more like a college baseball than we are professional baseball. But Daniel and I have had this conversation for 7-8 years that we've been on here. We're getting closer now to where all three baseballs align more than we ever have. I think I think this is so I think that some of this has to do with the fact that now minor leagues, that the college game is meant to be a proving ground for Major League Baseball, like the other sports have been for years. I think that is all getting closer. I think that you can break it down statistically and still benefit yourself, but it's more about athleticism and movement now.
Yeah, what made me wonder about that is when I look at high school baseball players today, they're massive. And
Yes.
so I assume, and when I think back to high school baseball players when I was in high school, we had some really good players, but they look like twigs compared to these guys
Yeah.
today. So I assume, they're throwing harder, they're hitting the ball, a lot harder. So I was just curious how much that is sort of translated in terms of a trickle down effect. But what you said makes
Sure.
perfect sense in terms of the college game.
Yeah, a lot of proving ground and I say proving ground. It's much more based on high school is more about you see more games lost than you see won, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
It's all about limiting your mistakes. And that's why you have to have your good bunt coverages. You have to have good communication. You have to have your outs when you take it. Now, I will tell you something on the flip side, too. A lot of these kids, one, they're just built different. Like our building was built in the 60s, and it should not house the kids we have because they're so big nowadays. But I will say this. Also, all these larger high schools have now turned into strength and conditioning in every sport. Every sport and every school is doing this to where they're having very direct strength and conditioning programs. And boy, it makes a big difference. I mean, you can see it. Uh, Weight training, conditioning, and athleticism have aligned with the mastercraft of baseball, and it's really cool to see. But it also proves that the haves and have-nots are. It's pretty clear sometimes on those who has the resources and who doesn't.
Yeah, I would imagine. I know, and I know, like I said, Alan and I've talked about it some, but the prevalence of travel ball when you can afford that, that just develops you that much faster and improves you
Yeah,
on.
yeah, yeah,
So,
yeah. What
that.
one I'll tell you this too. One of the things that people will hate this next line, but I will hold tight on this. Uh, Travel ball is a money grab. There's too many operations out there that are out there to get hands in pockets. I really wish we would get back to the high school American Legion days, because I mean, when we played American Legion ball, it was like minor league baseball. I think that we're missing that a little bit. I think that's going to hurt the growth of the game in the long run. But I also believe that we're circling back. There's a lot of youth interest now, and that's a very, very good sign. I think that that's going to maybe choke out some of the travel ball aspect, and maybe start focusing more on single teams, more high school teams, more county teams, and city teams. I think that those things are coming back around, just because a lot of these big travel organizations are being exposed. I mean, there are kids that are paying $4,000 a summer, and that's I understand it's 2026 and those things are going to happen, but I feel like that it's kind of circling back around to where there's a lot of pride for that team that you wear on the front of your chest, just like the name on your back. I think that we're coming back to that kids are realizing that they're just a number, and parents are realizing that they're just a mark. There's a ton of baseball being played. I think some of those levels right now, when you're playing these 60 games a summer, are also leading to a lot of injuries. It's not just the optimistic side of me that thinks that, hey, we're getting back to some better grassroots baseball. I do feel like it's coming, and not to go on a big tirade about travel ball, but I do think kids are a little bit exposed right now.
Yeah, I didn't mean to. I pulled the soapbox out, and I should have known better. So
No, don't worry about it. I mean, here's the deal. I'm on the inside,
Yeah.
and that's
Yeah.
one luxury we have. Other than that, I mean, here's what I can equate this to. If you look up any high school baseball at this point, you're not going to get the metrics of it. You're going to get the kid that hits 90. Well, that's few and far between. And you're going to get the kid that can hit 450. Very few and far between. But that's the social media aspect of it, because that's what's going to be seen, and that's what's going to be promoted. I think that'll die out quickly, and you're going to get back to the team aspect and the community aspect of it more than anything. And it's I don't mean to jump all over it. I feel like some of the organizations are leading things away from. We're just shy of seeing not only baseball, basketball, to try to get them away from the high school aspect of it, and that's just never going to happen. And the we're starting to see the light, the light at the end of the tunnel on a lot of these things. So yeah, not to go into a negative aspect of that, but it's just how it is.
Well, we'll shift from the negative aspect of that to the negative aspect of what the Cardinals are doing right now. And that is, it's weird again, and being that we haven't had a chance, all of us, to talk about the season. I have, because I've talked about the season all the time, unfortunately, for most people. But Alex, here we are. At this time of the year, we kind of thought the Cardinals would be, really focusing on the draft and not so much on the field. Instead, they're above 500, but they've lost 4 in a row. And I know you've been a little bit busy. You've been a little bit removed from this. But does a losing streak in a season like this hold the same weight as it does in a season like the last couple, where you expected the Cardinals to be in contention?
Certainly not, at least not for me. I still feel there's like a sense of house money right now. If I had been on this show, I don't know, at the end of April, I probably would have said something to the effect of, well, I'm sure by the time June 1st, June 2nd rolls around, this team is going to be 5 games under 500, but I'm having fun right now. Well, we are almost there, and they're 4 games above 500, in spite of that 4-game losing streak you just brought up, and also in spite of probably the worst loss of the season
Yeah.
on Wednesday. I mean, just just from the standpoint of, I always hate that, like tuning into a no hitter, but you're only up 1-0, because so many things can go away so quickly, and not just the no hitter. You can lose the no hitter, you can lose the shutout, lose the complete game. Oh, and then also lose the entire game. And that was exactly what happened. And it was just unfortunate. Mason makes that play probably 19 times out of 20.
Sure.
And he had made a great play earlier in the game to kind of keep the no-hitter intact. So it was just one of those really unfortunate losses where, and this might sound kind of silly, but when you look at the standings, 30-24 looks different than 29-25.
Right.
Which I know sounds ridiculous, but when that win was in grasp, when it looked like they were going to get out of that inning, after what was it, first and third, no outs, and then they got 2 outs, held the guy at third, and then got that great strikeout, and it looked like maybe they were going to escape from the inning. I was doing that stupid thing of like, "Ooh, I think we might win this game," which we all know to never do until you get that 27th out. But I still feel very entertained by this team. I still feel very pleased with this team. At the beginning of the season, I remember thinking like, this could go bad very quickly. And let me be clear, it could still go bad, but I remember thinking it almost feels as though our whole rotation is Dakota Hudson, in that we have guys who don't have much stuff, but also who don't throw a lot of strikes like they need to. But then we started kind of see the personality of the team, which is that they don't throw a lot of strikes, although that's improved a little bit lately. I think Dane Perry made note of that in his latest Substack. But they have a team which, with the exception of, I guess, maybe Liberatore, of a rotation that's not necessarily great, but they keep a lot of balls on the ground. I think Liberatore is the only one who doesn't have a ground ball rate, north of 42-43%. And when you have a pretty decent defense behind you like they do, you can win some games, as we've seen. And the last couple days, pitching hasn't been really the problem. It's been the offense. I think it was this Monday on Seeing Red, Bernie, and this was before the series against the Brewers. Bernie mentioned how, like, out of the last 21 games, I forget what the stat was, like 10 or 12 times they haven't scored more than 2 runs. And did we score more than 2 runs in any of the games against Milwaukee?
No,
I didn't. Yeah, I didn't think so. So
no, I scored one late in the Mizorowski game. Scored one I think I shut out in the middle game, and then scored one in the last game.
But overall, I still feel very satisfied with this team. The 4-game losing streak doesn't bother me. Like in 2015, a 4-game losing streak, I would have had a hard time getting out of bed. During a season like that, where you have a good team and you feel like you're holding on for dear life to hold back the Pirates and the Cubs. This season, I had already baked in my mind that we were going to have multiple 4-game losing streaks, I think. So I'm doing just fine right now.
So, Alan, what do you think? I mean, again, Alex is right. 30 wins sounds better than 29. It's kind of the reason people mark stuff on the shelf as $29.99 instead of $30, right? That number on the front does make a difference. And it has been a struggle over the last 10 days. Is this a regression? Is this, it's been fun, but now we're going to kind of be the team that they thought they were going to be?
Well, it's funny that you use house money, because that's what I've used all year. It's one of those. It's like, hey, good baseball is one of those. It's basically free to us at this point, because the expectation was that we weren't going to get any of this. So to be hanging around right at the cusp of June is pretty invigorating for me. I love the brand of baseball. It's weather holds what we were hoping for, and how many times in the last 10 years has that been the case where it just wasn't? I'm a huge Burleson guy. To see where this is going, I mean, don't even get me started on Walker, and that's one that I haven't pulled for him. I haven't pulled for anybody this hard since maybe Alex Reyes. One of those you're just like, gosh, he deserves better than this. Let's hope it works out. So let's stay the course with this. Yeah, I mean, ultimately, I mean, the season is a success for me because you've kind of figured out what they're going to be a little bit, which is exciting and fun. So I was talking to a good buddy of mine this weekend who is a Giants fan, and they kind of did the retool this year where they went and spent some money, and he and I were talking, and he is as big of a Giants fan as we are Cardinals fans, and he made the comment. He said, when the Cardinals were bad and the Giants were bad, that was one thing. He goes, but now the Cardinals are fun and we're still bad after spending all the money. And he goes, it's a gut punch. He said, he goes, it kind of stinks. And I was like, to hear him, who it would never give the Cardinals any credit, to say something like that means that it's kind of the global opinion that, hey, this team has some things going in the right direction. I'm a huge culture guy coming from where I come from in any way. And to see that the things that they've done seem to get along. The post game interviews after wins when they have the camera up in the clubhouse is really cool, by the way. That's always cool. You're starting to see some personality. Think about how many teams we've seen in the past with the tarp soft thing would not have resonated well.
Mhm.
Yeah. that I think it's more common that it would not have, as opposed to what we're seeing this year. And I just think that that's a sign of changing times. So where they were in the standings right now is a bonus to me because of what they've become in the stadium, to where it's actually fun again. Last year I went on 3 different occasions, and I felt like there was energy in the ballpark, but there was a blockade of reaching it, if that makes any sense. And maybe that blockade was the fact that it was 2/3 full. That still may be the case, but I do feel like there's some energy, and I feel like there's some young energy to it, to where even if they stay in this or not throughout the summer, I think that we've seen enough of the positives to think, okay, now not only have they advertised and followed through what they're going to do, we do see that there's a future ahead here. I don't think it's really hard to look and think this pitching staff's not going to get you very far, even if you were to Greek into a wild card. They just don't strike enough guys out. Alex is right. We've seen some of that. You've seen Dustin May, baby, becoming Dustin May. We'll see how that goes. But there's still a lot of question marks there. And it's one of those situations where it feels like we're on the young, we're age wise at in it with a rotation of guys that are actually going to be like the veterans they brought in, hoping to be the 1 year mix, and Lester and those three there at the one run. You feel like you get a lot of those guys. So to be long winded about this, I'm pretty happy with where they stand right now. I'm excited to go this weekend. I feel like now that the Cubs have come back down to earth a little bit, this is going to be a series where you can get off the mat and kind of show what you're all about. And how many times have we said, "Hey, I can't wait for Nootbaar to get back"? I don't know if that's ever been said, but that's coming. And if let's just say they get somewhat of a Nootbaar that they have in the past, well, you not only turn into an exciting team, you may be a dangerous one.
I think that the energy that we've seen out of this team so far this year has been great, and it's been awesome. But I also think it's kind of maybe sitting on a bit of a precipice as well, because if the offense has to step up, right? I mean, it doesn't have to win a lot of games, but it's got to be in games, and it's got to be part of that energy that the Cardinals had, where those come from behind. You never felt like they were out of it in the first couple of months. In the last couple of weeks, now granted, that Milwaukee series, you have to put that aside, because that just wasn't going to work for most teams, much less this team. But it feels like there's still some of that energy, but it hasn't been quite as noticeable. I mean, we did have the rally against the Reds in that second game of the doubleheader that didn't quite go that way, but that's the kind of thing, I think, to keep that kind of energy and keep that kind of buzz around the team. I think they've got to have games like that more so than hitting 180 for a 10-game stretch. And that's, I mean, because you're right, the pitching staff is going to do all it can to keep you into ball games, but it's not going to lead you to the promised land. They've pitched very well, but I feel like there's probably some regression there as well. They've got to have something. They got to have something more than Jordan Walker hitting a bomb every once in a while. And you're right, Lars Nootbaar coming back, adding to this lineup. Getting it past, the top 4, that could be a huge thing. Alex, does that make sense?
It absolutely makes sense. I believe just a couple weeks ago or a month ago, if you looked at the guys who were getting a lot of at bats, really only Victor Scott was a real slouch at the plate, and it seems like over the last couple of weeks, we've seen several guys take pretty big dips. Obviously Weatherholt and Walker and Burleson excluded, but Wynn hasn't really been hitting the ball very well. Gorman, Gorman's a tough one. Like I almost don't care what the rest of his stats look like. I don't care if he's striking out 30% of the time, so long as he's slugging around 450, and he's just not doing that right now. So, but with Newbar coming back, I'm hoping that's going to be exactly what this team needs in terms of another guy who's pretty decent at getting on base. He and Weatherholt can be pretty good table setters for Burleson and Jordan Walker. I don't know if this happened to you guys, but when I first heard that he was on the precipice of coming back, my first reaction was almost like, "Oh yeah, he's on the team."
Yeah.
He's been hurt a lot, and we hadn't seen him. We had yet to see him this year, and I had almost, forgotten about him. And I was just trying to think in my head, what age season is this for him? He seems probably older than he actually is, probably because we all remember when he got drafted, partly because of the name and that. But would this be like his age 28 season? I'm trying to remember how old.
I'm not sure age-wise. He made his debut in 21.
This is his age. Yeah, This is his age 28. This is his age 28.
Okay. So. Okay, that's what I would have guessed. And you sort of still feel like he, kind of like with Tyler O'Neill. Tyler O'Neill had that. I mean, they're very different players, but Tyler O'Neill had that one really good season, and then a whole string of seasons where it felt like he could never get above 250 or 300 plate appearances. And that kind of seems to be the track that Newbar is on right now. So I would love to see, that's slightly unfair. I think he's had a couple seasons where he's, had at least 500 plate appearances with the team, but I would love to see just kind of a return to that, 2023 to 2022 type guy from him.
Now, it is, I should note that it is his age 28 season, but he turned 28 like September of last year. So he is, 28, over 28 and a half before he's actually going to get on the field. Not that
is it July 1st they judge that by? What is the?
Yeah, I think it's July 1st is what their age is on July 1st, and his birthday is September 8th. So, September 8th of 1997, not of 1998. Different, a lot more import if it was a 98. If you know, you know. But yeah, and he's had 500 plate appearances twice. He had 424, but he had 523, then 583 last year. Last year was really the only year that we've seen him be completely effective. But you're right. I mean, Alex, I think you're absolutely right on the fact that we kind of forgot about him, and that's out of sight, out of mind for a lot of players. Right? Once they aren't out there every day, you're so focused on those guys, you do tend to, unless it's a huge name, tend to forget. But I think that's going to be very fascinating, because not only, not only does he need to be playing well for the Cardinals, but I mean, Alan, here we are. We're getting to that trade deadline, and if the Cardinals are, we just lost Alan. So I'll ask, we'll see if he bounces back. There he is. Alan, yeah. You're there. But Lars is also one of those guys that we've talked about for the beginning of the year, that if they play well enough, they may be somewhere else on August 3rd, I think is the trade deadline this year. What do you think? I mean, is there still that kind of importance for him, on both sides of the ball?
I would think so. I mean, especially as much as they've advertised that, hey, this is more about the future or whatnot. I would think that's the situation. that, hey, you have a short amount of time to really take off here. I'm curious to see what they do if they're in the hunt. I don't think there's any throw in the towel, but I do wonder if this will be a no movement type situation, other than a guy like Newtbar, when you can, if he was to take off and you could sell high. I'm extremely curious to see what they do at a deadline this year if they're in it.
Yeah, Alex, go ahead.
No, I was going to ask you guys if you think it would be smart. Let's say he stays at or near his current kind of pitching line. Smart to trade a guy like Riley O'Brien, because I think that would be the move, even if you are in contention. When I say contention, I mean kind of around that wild card bubble, because I don't really have any grander illusions in that. I think that's the move from the Ben Godard principle of always kind of trade high on relievers, and also we're talking about a guy who is on the other side of 30.
Right.
We've seen, if they had traded out, and like you, Alan, there's few players I wanted to succeed more than Alex Reyes, but I also think back to, had they traded Alex Reyes, maybe at that point in 2021, the return they could have gotten would have been massive. So I would almost rather see a move like that than Nootbaar, just because I value kind of a position player like Nootbaar more than I do a reliever like Riley O'Brien. But I also understand, like, hey, this is a guy who, one of the few arms, strikes a ton of guys out, doesn't walk a lot of guys. This is a pretty valuable piece if you actually are trying to sneak into one of those wild card spots.
Yeah, and I'm sure that's going to be a question that comes up this weekend as bloggers and podcasters get a chance to talk to Chaim Bloom. I think I'm definitely in that camp. I definitely think that's the play, but I also think it's a bit of that's the plan of vacuum, right? Because there are qualitative factors that have to be put into this as well. And I know that there's going to be some idea that if the Cardinals are still, again, not even in contention, but even, above 500, that there could be a negative impact both in the clubhouse and in some of the fan base if you start selling off these pieces, hoping for this perpetual rebuild. I agree. I think they should, but Alan, how much does that kind of stuff, play into a decision like that?
Well, and that's where my curiosity comes from. It's a situation where I'm thinking, all right, are we now starting to refill that cup of goodwill, as opposed to, hey, they don't have any of that anymore, because I felt like in the past few years of Mo, you knew that was out, that they'd better be on the money on whatever move they were going to make. This will be one that I'm curious, because I know that you and I, the very first thing I thought about when Alex brought that up is the conversation you and I had whenever the Brewers traded Hader and it completely collapsed on them. And I do wonder how much of that weighs on the clubhouse. I mean, I do. And especially now where it feels like the clubhouse is, let's be honest. I mean, now we can see that it may have been a little stale with the veterans last year. And how much of that is going to play into the current market. Where are we on an O'Brien contract? As in, what are we up against as far as lengthwise with the team? How much does he have to stay? May not matter, but I mean, they clearly said that every move they make is going to be about the future and not the now.
Yeah, I'm trying to remember. I know he is. I'm pretty sure it's this year and next year. I can't remember if it's got another year to that before he even hits arbitration. I mean, he's got. Well, let me see if I can scroll down here fast enough to not be a miserable. Okay, Riley O'Brien is. Yeah, I guess he's had. It's hard to tell on this one, but I'd say at least he's had major league service of 1.129 years. So he's a couple years from arbitration still.
Okay.
So there's a lot of control there that you could do that. Now, like Alex said, he's on the wrong side of 30.
Yeah.
And, that makes sense too. But then again, I mean, I'm like, if that's the domino you trade, Alex, you almost then just trade everybody. I don't know if there's a trade that they can make that is just a one-off. I mean, maybe Lars is because he hasn't been around that much this year anyway. So if he plays well for a couple months, you can trade him. You've got a guy like Baez who might be ready by that point in time. Maybe you can get away with just doing that move. But it feels like a lot of these other ones, like Dustin May or Riley O'Brien or even Stanek. Well, Stanek probably not a big issue, but you do one of those, you have to do them all.
That's a good point.
But I mean, again, it may be where you do that. I mean, and I think that's again, we're sitting here, we don't know what Chaim Bloom does because we haven't seen him do a trade deadline, at least as the face of the franchise or the front office yet. So we don't know, quite like we did with Mo. We knew Mo wasn't going to do a thing like that, right? I mean, Alan, we talked about trading Ryan Helsley a year before that they did, and you knew that they wouldn't because of the situation. I don't know about Chaim Bloom. He has been very open about long-term gains versus short-term gains. And then we don't know where they're going to be at. I mean, I feel like to some degree, and maybe we can ask him this, I don't know if he'd give us the answer, but it feels like he's almost in the worst of both. I don't know, worst of both worlds, but it definitely in a situation where he wants to do one thing and he'd like the team to maybe be a little bit worse so he could get away with it.
Yeah, I've often wondered about that. You're never going to get him to answer because no one that's in the sport, everyone's just competitive enough where they're going to say the line that we all want to hear. But I mean, it's one of those. To me, I do wonder if they're going to toe that line of being competitive but also playing for the future, which one of the catchers is going to be dangled out there.
Mm-hmm.
It's one of those because Crooks is coming, and you kind of wonder, well, if he's coming. I mean, you kind of start to think, well, is that going to be the answer, or is that going to be the trade chip? I don't know if we've seen enough of Herrera. Personally, I think I have, but that may not matter. But I do kind of wonder, if that may be one of the movable parts. I don't know. That's everything they've told us makes this really exciting because now they're going to be tested one way or the other.
Yeah. But I mean, Alex, you have a team in your backyard that has tried to do this rebuild thing and it hasn't necessarily clicked, right? So we know how dangerous and iffy any kind of trade maneuvering is. But yet I feel like that's something they have to at least try.
Well, what's funny is it just reminded me, since you brought that up, when the Cardinals and Nats played earlier this year, I sent a text message to a friend of mine who's a Nats fan. Something to the effect of, I'm heading out to the ballpark to watch two teams that by the end of the year might have lost a combined 190 games. And they are now both, the Nats are surprising people just like the Cardinals are. But yeah, like we've seen rebuilds across all sports turn so toxic that they almost become hard to recover from. Whether it's like, the White Sox for the first time are finally showing signs of life after just, 4 years of just dreadful baseball. I mean, not just bad baseball, but just like abominable baseball. And to me, that is just so toxic to a fan base. And so you have to be careful about that. I do sometimes wonder if a lot of the GMs really dislike the additional wild card because it changes, it makes the calculus a little bit harder on what you do when you have a team like the Cardinals or you have a team like the Nats that is not a contender in the true sense of the word. But how do you tell your fan base, like, we're not really going to go for it, even though it is, June 28th, and we're only 2 games out of a wild. You know what I mean? Like,
right. Yeah.
That would not have happened, or it would have been rare for that to have happened. Several years, 10, 15 years ago, and now it seems kind of like an every year thing. There's one of those teams that is not really for real, but you kind of have to act like they are because when you look at the standings, they're there.
Right. And you don't know. I mean, again, like we said, you don't know that, selling and getting prospects will actually pan out in the future. Whereas if you add in now, maybe you make some miracle 2006 Cardinals run and flags fly forever.
And that was actually me just kind of venturing into old man, complaining about the additional wild card. Let me
of course,
be clear.
I'm right there.
I saw the opening and I went for it.
I mean, I've complained about the actual wild card, much less the expansion of the wild card. So, I'm not going to go away from that. But yeah, I mean, and again, I mean, you look at, and you talked about, how that can affect not only a franchise, but the fan base. I mean, look at Pittsburgh, right? I mean, except for those little bit of, like you were talking about 2015, that area, that the 2 or 3 years they were good, they've been in this perpetual cycle of trying to draft good players and try to get players up and then just be miserable. And that's why there are more people at minor league games than there are at Pittsburgh Pirates games. Sometimes.
And even when they have these guys, whether it's Skeens, Connor, the guy this year, they're already making jokes about, I can't wait to see this guy in a Yankees uniform.
Yeah.
That fan base has just really been through it. I was thinking about when you were talking, I forget his name, but the Pirates fan that you had on, I mean, not just fan, but blogger and podcaster that you had on before our series with them. And I think the comp to them in the American League, not that the leagues matter anymore, but when they did like the Tigers, not quite as bad, but a team with a lot of history like the Pirates do, that and they've had way more recent success than the Pirates have, but they've also had stretches of just really, really bad baseball that you've seen, which you've seen I think has really beaten down that fan base over the years.
And may wind up losing Scooble this year to a trade because of things, and that's just another body blow to them. So Alan, where do you sit on all this? I mean, do you think that, do you think this fan base, because we've seen how bad it has been the last couple of years when you've tried to put Band-Aids on things, are going to be a little bit more open, that even if we're close now, if the Cardinals decide to go and sell and bring in pieces, they're going to be, in Bloom we trust?
Yeah, well, I think that, and this is one of those, it's going to sound like we're talking down to people, and I don't mean it like this, but I think the fans that have been with this the longest, and, and I don't want to say true fans, but the ones, I don't have any better word to put it than that, but I think everybody is now collectively bought in that, that you're just like, hey, if it happens, it happens. We've enjoyed it. Why it works. We see the long-term picture of this. I think there's still going to be that vocal minority, your your Twitter style that's gonna crap on any move. Period. I'm me. I'm one of those. Hey, you only live once. Take your shot when you can. Even I'm on one of these. Even I'm in the mindset at this point of, hey, if you think this is going to improve them and it's going to speed up the process to really compete in 27 or 28, I trust the process to do so. I think that they've won my trust up to this point. I think that maybe the ultimate optimism, positivity from me, I don't know, but yes, I would trust any move that was made. I don't know how much I would literally be disappointed at it at this point, because and I'm saying that with the fact that I think that there's probably 4 or 5 slash stars that they have right now that are safe. And I don't know if I could necessarily have said that on opening day.
Yeah. And it probably helps that besides Newt Barr, pretty much anybody that's going to get traded is somebody that has not necessarily put down roots in St. Louis, right? Even Riley O'Brien, who's been around for a year or so, has been hurt and has been in the minors and things of that nature. He hasn't, he's very good now, and we're glad of that, but he hasn't, it's not like he's done it for 4 or 5 years. So maybe that tempers it. You're not having to turn around and trade an Arenado or a Gray or something like that. You've already done that. You're not turning around and trying to trade a Mason Wynn or a Jordan. You're not trading Jordan Walker at his height, anything like that. You're not doing that kind of crazy stuff. So maybe that helps it. I don't know, Alex. Does that help at all?
Yeah, I think it does. Actually, let me backtrack real quick. I got a text message. I didn't hear your question.
I like the
Sorry,
fact that
I
you
was
didn't
looking.
hear the question and you
I
automatically agreed
well,
with me. That's why we have
well,
Alex on this show.
I started like, can I fake this? And then I realized, no, just ask him what the question was again. Sorry, I got a
No,
text message from the person who's picking me up at Lambert St. Louis Airport tomorrow. So
I
I'm
got you.
sorry.
very,
I'm
very
sorry.
much more important than this question. No, I was just saying we were talking about how all these guys don't have roots, and I was asking if you're trading a Dustin May, if you're trading a Riley O'Brien, if you're trading maybe even a Lars Nootbaar
Oh
because he's
yeah.
been hurt and stuff, does that ease the blow more? Does it make it where even more casual fans are more likely to absorb that better?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, you know, tell me your Riley O'Brien memory, or to tell me your Dustin May memory. I mean, maybe yesterday.
Yeah,
I
right.
they don't exist really. It's always easier than having to let go of a guy that I'm trying to think of a painful. We haven't had a lot of really painful trades, even though we have let go of a lot of guys lately.
Hmm.
But even when Arenado and Goldschmidt left, I think most of us had felt like it was time. Um,
Yeah.
Trying to think of a trade that just really, I think at the time, it no longer feels that way in retrospect. But I remember at the time feeling sort of like a gut punch when they traded Tommy Pham,
Mm.
which now I no longer quite have those feelings. Tommy's a prickly guy. He's not always the easiest guy to like.
Well, a hole in your heart or in your side or in your stomach,
Yes,
depending
yes,
where
there
you've
you
been
go.
hit.
But we had some fun moments with him. We had that season where he had a 300, 400, 500 season.
Hmm.
I think that was 17, and I remember when they traded him being genuinely sad. Uh, but that was because we had a lot of, he was an emotional player, and therefore we kind of reciprocated that emotion. We had a lot of fun moments with him in ways that we don't even have close with some of the guys you rattled off. So yeah,
Mm.
it's always easier. And with guys that we have had great moments with, like Goldschmidt, Arenado, they had kind of already come over that hill and were on the way
Right.
back down to where at least speaking for myself, I was very, very much at peace with seeing those guys depart. Even though I'm very grateful for their contributions to the team.
I don't think Mo made a lot of those painful trades. I mean, he had to make a couple early with Roland and Edmonds, which kind of hurt some just because you're coming so close after the World Series and stuff. He makes the Rasmus trade. I don't know if that's painful or it was just frustrating at the time. It turned out to be okay. And maybe the Alan Craig and Joe Kelly trade, but I just don't feel like that was, Mo was much more about trading these prospects we never heard of for this guy that's hopefully
Yeah.
going to be good because he's there. We didn't have a whole lot of, because the Cardinals were continually winning, a whole lot of taking off the major league roster of people that we really had an attachment to.
No, you listen. I completely agree with that, and even that risk averse is one of the things that we always equated with Mo.
Mm-hmm.
You know
Mm-hmm.
what I mean? It was one of those to where he just wanted to avoid the big loss on those. Because if you remember, the Rasmus deal came with some high fives because the only thing you ever heard about with Rasmus is he's never going to live up to the hype because won't quit listening to his dad.
Right.
Because there was a big black mark on that whenever that deal was made, because you're just like, yeah, I understand he was the number one prospect, but there was enough smoke around that where you felt like that move was probably for the better. And then I remember the Craig and Kelly, while I didn't like it, of course, and for the reasons you didn't, but you knew that they were both up against it contractually, and they had to, and kind of had to make that move to get anything in return at that point. So yeah, I'm not picking on the two that you had pointed out, but those were the first things that kind of came to mind. Of yeah, there was never one that you were like, whew, that one's tough, because I just kind of felt like, and I'm a Mo guy, it was just there was never any risk to it.
Yeah, I mean, now I'm been around long enough that I wrote about the Rasmus trade and I wrote about other trades like that, and
Yeah,
I'm sure if you go back and read them, you can see how bad off I was, because I remember being aggravated because it felt like you had chosen Tony La Russa, who was feeling like at the end of his career, actually was,
Yeah.
over Colby Rasmus, a young prospect.
Yeah.
It was a shock. It was a legit
It was.
shock when that happened.
Yeah. So yeah, there's none of that on this trade. I mean, there's nothing reasonable. Again, if they decided, wow, we're going to sell Jordan Walker at his height, that would be crazy, and that's not going to happen. But I don't think there's anything on this roster that could happen, or very likely to happen, that's going to shock us like that. I mean, we could maybe argue against it, but any trade that Bloom makes right now, I think we're going to kind of. He's got enough goodwill still, and like Ellen was talking about, the team has built some of that back up with the success of what he's done so far. That we're just not going to get too upset about it. I don't think, right, Alex?
I totally agree. It reminds me. I mean, this is a very different thing, but when in the immediate aftermath of Schilt taking over for Mike Matheny, and I don't like to dump on Mike Matheny, but Schilt had so much goodwill just for the fact that he was not Mike Matheny. I remember thinking he could bat Yachty lead off right now, and we'd all be fine with it.
Yep.
Yeah.
Real quick on Colby Rasmus. I follow tennis, and I think Colby Rasmus should have played tennis because we still remember his dad as this outlier guy, whereas in tennis, those dads are like a dime a dozen. These like overbearing parents who are way too into their kids' development and stuff like that. That family should have steered him towards tennis.
And if I don't watch tennis, so you can tell me if I'm wrong or not, because I know there are very emotional people in tennis, but I feel like there's a lot of stoic people in tennis as well. And that was one of the things that Rasmus got kind of griped at, was he didn't look like he cared about the game. That's almost a feature in tennis a little bit, isn't it?
Yeah, but tennis could also change him, because I'm a pretty calm guy, but tennis will turn you into a madman. There's something about the sport. Maybe in the same way that I don't play golf, but it's my understanding that golf can do that to a very serene and calm person as well. So tennis could have brought out that sort of emotion and personality we wanted from Rasmus all along.
Yeah, that's true. I'm just glad you're young enough, Alex, to still play tennis, and you're not shifted into the pickleball arena yet.
I don't play pickleball. I'm not a pickleball hater like a lot of tennis players are. I think if people are out doing something where they're moving around, that's fantastic. But I'm sticking with tennis for now.
Before we get kind of wrapping up here, I do want to take a moment, because it has been there has been a bit. We referenced Dustin May in his start yesterday. Goes into the, pitches 7 no-hit innings, takes it to the 8th, and with a pitch count that would have allowed him to probably complete it. I mean, they would have let him probably complete it anyway, because he's not the young guy or anything like that. But he was not in any necessarily risk of being pulled. It's been 25 years now since Bud Smith pitched that no-hitter in September of 2001, I think, out in San Diego. Alan, are you surprised that it has taken? I mean, we've had close calls. Michael Walker had a close, got it within one. And
I could still see that. I could still see that hit.
Oh yeah.
And Miles Michaelis, for all the grief we give him, he got to within a strike, I think, of a no-hitter before the ball was hit off the wall. Are you surprised it's been this long?
Yes, and even when you said the date just now, it hasn't resonated with me. I was thinking, man, that was a long time ago. And I knew that there was a lot of talk of it yesterday and whatnot too. Let me ask you two something. Which one? How far down does Shelby Miller's gym get thrown down because he had the leadoff single?
I remember that was
yes, that was insane. I was like, that was one, because I was a Miller guy anyway. And I was like, this may be one of the best pitch games we've ever had. And it was ruined by the leadoff single.
It was, yes, but in a way it wasn't, because that allowed him to then mow 27 guys. Like, he had a perfect game.
That's a good point.
He had a perfect game after that. Like, if that single had happened in the 4th inning, I think that game, and not enough people remember this game, to your point. This was, as you said, one of the all-time greats. It's not quite the Kerry Wood 20 strikeout game, but it's close. I mean, that's how good of a game this was.
Yeah.
And the fact that, that leadoff hitter, I forget who it was, but it wasn't like he hit the ball solidly. It was a kind of a fluky hit in and of itself, that one hit, if I recall.
Yeah.
It was the Rockies, I believe.
Yeah.
Yep. And then
Eric Young Jr.
Okay, that of course. Yeah, yeah. And then for him to get that hit, and then for him to kind of then throw a perfect game, it's kind of reminds me of when Pedro Martinez did that for the Expos, but then the game went into extra innings and he lost it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
He still faced 27 guys and put 27 guys down. Now, Pedro did it in a way where he should have gotten a perfect game. Just, his teammates are lucky he didn't murder them for not scoring a run. But Shelby's, to me, is right up there, because it's. I'm trying to think what I would compare it to. Like, how I feel like pre-Bonds hitting 73 or McGuire hitting 70. I remember sometimes people would play with like 162 games over the course of 2 seasons. Like, say that a guy had where he hit 60 home runs or something like that. Like, kind of a hidden season stretched over the course of 2 seasons. If you kind of look at it through that lens, it was one of the coolest things ever. I don't know how good of an analogy that was, but
yeah, that makes sense. I go with that. And I mean, anytime you're in the same conversation as Babe Ruth, you're in good shape, right? Babe Ruth and Ernie Shore had that same type of thing. Ruth comes in, gives up I think it was a hit. Yeah. Maybe it wasn't even a hit. It may have been just a hit a guy, and then gets ejected, and Ernie Shore comes in, and the guy gets caught stealing, and he retires everybody else. And it's not a perfect game.
I love that you brought that game up, Alan, because you're right. We don't talk about that game enough.
Yeah, that resonated with me yesterday, because we were talking about a lot of those, and I was thinking, one of the better ones, and I was a Walker guy too. I remember the Cosma sellout to try to complete that. Remember that?
Yeah.
I thought that. I mean, it was hokey, but it was awesome. The Miller always stood out, because I just felt like he was just just fleecing dudes.
It's amazing when you think, because I remember, of course, the one that Walker had there, but he had another one that was like 7 innings, and then he went like 5 no-hit innings in like his debut. It's almost surprising that maybe not with the Cardinals, but somewhere along the way he hasn't finalized one as well.
The fact that he's still pitching makes me smile, because I had him sort of earmarked as a guy who was going to be out of baseball pretty soon when he was starting to have a lot of those injuries. Because we're talking shoulder, right? He had shoulder.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah. So the fact that he's still pitching is, it just makes me happy.
Yeah, I mean, when we talk about Cardinal pitching prospects and their successful ones, we don't mention Michael Walker enough, because he had his 5 or 6 years here, but then went on to have more of a career anywhere else. But that's been a huge win for the Cardinals' development right there.
And that start he had against Pittsburgh, I want to say game 4 in that NLDS in 2013 is right up there in my opinion as well. He was dynamite in that game.
Yeah, and I mean, he carried a no-hitter in that one too, right?
I believe so.
I don't remember how long it went, but it went long enough that you started thinking about postseason no-hitters, and this was back before Houston had theirs, and Roy Halladay. Oh, I guess it was it after Holladay's one with the Phillies? I don't know. It's not that important.
But it was because we effectively ended that Phillies era in 2011.
True. Yeah. that's true. So, anyway, yeah, it's really amazing. I don't know, and we always like to say, "Oh, who's this guy? Who's going to throw?" I mean, like Chip Carey, on Wednesday, I think, or I think it was Wednesday, maybe it was Tuesday. Pointed out that he thought Jacob Mizorowski would have one or two in his career, which, I mean, he's kind of the Nolan Ryan a bit of this year, so maybe you can see that. But so often it's not those guys, right? I mean, it's a guy you never have thought of, but it's still very difficult for me to imagine that there's anybody on this staff, even as Dustin May gets that close, that's going to give it another ride like that.
Yeah, even if we...
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Go ahead. No, go ahead.
I was just going to say, even if we had a guy with just awesome stuff, you just don't expect to see a guy pitch 9 innings anymore.
Right.
Even if they're going to give up a hit or not. No, I totally agree. I'm dying to see a Cardinals no-hitter.
Yeah, but I mean, Houston's got 5 combined no-hitters now. That's the wave of the future. Go ahead, Alan.
I will say, I cannot believe it took me this long to get into this. I was in the stadium for Jaime Garcia's 7 innings of perfecto in 11.
Yeah, I about that.
I was actually in the commissioner's box that day, and it was insane. I'm telling you, that was some big time energy, and it was one of those to where that was a good Brewers team as well. And he was mowing dudes down, and it got to where everybody was talking about it, although you weren't supposed to. But it was just full of energy. I forgot about that one as well. Not just to get into great pitching performances and near no-nos, but I just wanted to point it out that I was there for that one, and he was dealing.
Look, we were getting a little late before we got into the Remember Some Guys era, so I'm glad we finally got into that before the show was over. Alex, it's been fun. Is there anything that you would like to touch on? Again, you don't have the platform that we do now. That it's been a while since Chirps. So what do you want to talk about?
Well, I'm going to say 2 things. One Cardinals thing related, and then I'm going to ask you a Star Wars question,
okay.
Daniel. But real quick, talk about that Shelby Miller game. Later that season, I believe it was the same year, I was at his complete game shutout in Toronto, if you remember that game.
Oh, nice. Yeah.
And I only bring that up because, Alan, you mentioned you were a Shelby guy. And I want to say this was only like maybe a month or 2 after that other game. Or I could find out it was like the next season. I don't know. It was 2014. I know it was the Toronto game. And I just remember being like, "Oh, we have a stud here. This is like the next guy." So yeah, Shelby Miller. He's a good guy to remember. But Alan, Daniel, I saw Mandalorian and Grogu this past weekend with my son. He absolutely loved it. I liked it. Didn't love it, but I liked it a lot, and I was entertained all the time. I know you've seen it, and I have a question for you. It's more of a Star Wars-centric question, and it's this. If you were piloting or driving one of these tall, clumsy Imperial Walker things, you know what I'm talking about?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Would you choose to walk along the side of a mountain in a very...
in a snowy area
where one bad step could mean you're falling off a cliff to your death? Because I would not. That was... you know what part I'm talking about, right?
Yeah, it's right there at the beginning.
Sorry, I should have said this is not a spoiler.
No, it's not. I mean, it's been in the trailers. Everybody, if you've watched the trailer, you've seen them. Yeah, that moment, or at least some of them have been there. Now let's be fair now. And when we think about the Empire, we think about the fact that they are very, very, very comfortable with narrow spans without guardrails. They have a lot of those kind of things where you have to try to walk over some chasm on this thing that you have to put your foot one ahead of the other. So I'm guessing they're fine with it. I would not be. No, I agree.
Are we sure those Imperial Walkers are even good? They seem they seem to be very easy to take down. I understand you have this sort of, you have the high ground when you're in that thing.
Mm-hmm.
But the legs are so tall that,
right.
I mean, we saw the Ewoks taking down those guys with a bunch of rocks. And logs.
To be fair, they got the scout troopers, not more.
Those two-legged ones. You're whatever. Yeah,
yes.
You're right. But
and I will say the Battle of Hoth, the only two that we see get taken down are the one that, they do the famous wrap the legs maneuver.
Yes. Yeah.
And then the one that almost steps on Luke and he's able to do that. But I mean, to scroll up and throw the thing in there. But, he's also a Jedi. I think they are very good in certain situations. I mean, they are very armored. It would be very hard to take them down, but you're right. The gangliness of the legs would seem to be a place where you could focus your attack.
So you wouldn't take it on a narrow path along the side of a mountain with a big hanging cliff.
No, I mean, because I don't want to be on a hanging cliff in anything. But if you want to try to justify it, I guess the fact is, one, it does move slowly, so you're very carefully taking those steps. And it has, the feet do have a fairly wide base. So,
True.
If you don't have exterior issues, which, like somebody trying to knock you over, which, again, when they started this, they were not expecting that. Then maybe that works. But yeah, I think it was more the fact they wanted to get AT-ATs in the movie.
Alan, do you have thoughts?
Well, no, not really. I'm sorry. Yeah. I was entertained by the conversation, though.
That was interesting. I was not, when you told me you had a Star Wars question, that was not the direction I was expecting you to go, but it was very, very intriguing. I will say I did.
Spoiler. Definitely not a spoiler. We're cool. Come on, man.
The toys were.
Yeah, I loved them.
But I want to tell you, I'll tell you this story that I've told before. When I was growing up, I had most of the toys, including an AT-AT. And of course, they were well played with. They are not in any kind of pristine condition. But then when my son comes along, we're buying toys for him, and they redo the AT-AT, the new AT-AT at that time, which is probably 15 years now, was bigger, a little bit bulkier, a little bit sturdier than the one that I had. But it hurt me one day when my son, who at that time is 5, 6, whatever he may have been, said that he was getting out the antique AT-AT, which was the one that I played with. And I was like, I didn't need that. I did not need that at all. But it is I think maybe I have taken my revenge, because he got the huge Millennium Falcon for like his 3rd birthday, and it's sitting in my den. So, maybe we'll see if he ever gets it back. I don't know.
Awesome.
All right. Well, Alex, if you don't have any more mind-bending questions for us,
I don't.
It has been a lot of fun. It always is to have you on, and we'll do it again sometime this summer, most likely. But I look forward to seeing both of you on Saturday. Look forward to seeing what that experience is like with High and Bloom in the room, and that's going to be a bit different for us all. And then Alan and I will be with you next week. We'll break that down, and we'll get into our summer routines. But until then, for Alan and Alex, I'm Daniel. Good night.
The 0-2. Got him! Strikeout number 12. The 0-2 pitch. He got him! Strikeout number 13. 27 in a row. In one of the most dominating pitching performances ever by a Cardinals rookie.